All right.
All right, Nick, give us the clap.
Won't be the first time I've given someone the clap. Am I right?
Hey.
Yep.
Was that clap all right?
Now do it again.
Really?
Yeah.
Hey, welcome to episode 158 of Front Seat Gamer. I'm Nick. I'm here with Paul.
Hey.
And Blake.
Hey.
How's it going, guys?
Good.
Pretty good. You do have an order that you do that in.
Do I?
Yep. Paul in me. Always.
Paul's directly in front of me, and you're off to the side. So you know what? Also, I just like Paul more than you.
Yeah. I think you also, when Severn was here, you did Severn first and me.
Yeah.
And when Severn left, I thought, finally, I'll be second seat.
No.
You could have just swapped the room around. I reckon if you swap the room around.
Yeah, you should definitely swap the room around, and we'll just see what happens.
Yeah.
That'll be very
see what
good
happens
for
to
me.
the order.
That'll be really funny for me when I still keep it the same. You've done all that effort.
I'll be sitting directly in front of you,
and I'll be like
a foot away.
I'll be like, I'm here with Paul, and then I won't acknowledge you.
You just be talking through me to Paul behind me.
You guys been playing video games?
I've been playing games.
You've been playing games?
I've been playing games. Have you been playing games?
Games or game?
Paul?
I've played games.
I've played games.
What have you been playing?
So I downloaded a demo of a game that is not even out in early access yet.
Oh,
So it's even one step more removed from actually being
boy.
a release game. It is a village management
Oh,
survival. I've been
wow! You gotta be trolling me at this point.
No, I'm not. I'm not. It's called Manor Lords.
Manor Lords.
Manor Lords.
Okay. Is this one you had shown me a video of a while ago? Maybe.
Maybe I've been like looking forward to it for quite a while. Like Fabian was the first. Well, it was the one that like got me onto it because he knows the kind of games I'm into. So he just randomly every once in a while sends me a video of like some village management sim.
I'm tempted to fake a video game just to see if you would like.
You mean
It'll be pre early access, and it'll be a survival game.
Yeah.
Set in medieval
Oh man.
France.
Oh.
say.
Yeah.
And
Do you have to manage a dynasty?
eventually,
Oh my god.
yeah.
There's-
First you have to go through all of childhood,
Oh.
all of childhood into your awkward teenage phase.
Oh
And
yeah.
you have to start romancing
Oh yep.
the poor French women. But you die of the plague.
Sounds great. If you have a child, do you take over playing from them and then you go through that whole
Yes.
thing again?
Yes,
It's great. Good game.
that's how you prestige.
Yeah. I mean, I've been playing Crusader Kings.
Yeah.
And that's I mean you just
basically it.
described as Crusader Kings.
Yeah, I did. I'm pretty sure Mountain Blade has a similar function.
It does. When I was playing it, they had I was trying to worm my way into one of the ruling families.
Worm.
But they didn't have those full features yet.
Yeah.
So I think
You could have children, and then your children can grow up and become like warriors, and they can die on the battlefield and
Oh,
all sorts of
wow.
stuff. And I think in a mode where you can also die,
yeah,
you will like revive as one of your children.
that's
basically.
great. I'm
You take one.
100% into that.
I know.
Yeah.
You don't have to say it, Blake.
It
I already know.
sounds really, yeah. I'm really into my soul taking over my children's body and me living forever through my descendants.
Yeah, you're not allowed near my daughter anymore.
I did my descendants.
So tell me about Manor Lords.
There isn't. I say so. There
Is it Mountain Blade Manor Lords?
no
Mountain Blade, I guess.
Bounton.
Blade.
Yeah.
Manor Lords.
Manor Lords. It is tricky in my mind that Manor Lords and Banner Lords are so similar,
Yeah.
and I do have to think for a second before I say it. But the thing is, I was really looking forward to this, and I knew this demo was coming for a couple of weeks, and I played quite a lot of it. However, being one of the like drawbacks of the demo was that you couldn't save. So I was just starting again every time, and I pretty much only ever got up to the same place, and it would take me like probably like 4 or 5 hours to get to the spot, and then I'd be like, man, okay, I'm tired now. Like it's midnight.
It's just roguelike, but roguelike city builder.
Yeah, it's a roguelike city builder. Except
how many times did you do this demo?
so about 4 times.
Wow. Four times.
I mean, the first 2
20 hours of unsavable gameplay that you played.
Actually, that sounds about right. Maybe close to, maybe not quite 20, but like pretty in the teens at least. Of unsavable demo.
It was the same gameplay every time.
Yeah. But I was doing better every time. So always with these games, your first town is pretty much gonna die. Like you always end up wanting to restart. Every game of this I've played, of this type I've played, the first town either just collapses from hunger or cold or whatever. It's missing a resource that you didn't plan for. Or you get to a point where you've done such a bad job of like managing the town that you're like, okay, I can start again and do better now that I know what I'm doing. So the first 2 were kind of like that. And then the last 2, I had a much clearer idea of what I was doing, and I set things up much better. Everybody had food. Everybody had all the resources they needed. But then it would be like midnight or 1 a.m. and I'm like, it's time for me to go to bed, and I'm just going to close this because I can't save it.
You could pause it and leave the computer
I could
on.
leave it running like a child from the 90s with a Sega. Yeah.
I knew someone who had a GameCube running for like 6 weeks.
That's crazy.
Yeah. I
don't like the idea
appalled.
of leaving my computer running while I'm out.
Yeah. Okay.
You know?
Fair.
Yeah. I just have an idea that I would come home and my house is on fire.
So, tell me about this game.
It's pretty much, well, so we talked about this game called Farthest Frontier. Well, I talked about it for like 40 minutes on one of the other podcasts. So much of it is like that, really. Like, to be honest, like, there isn't, from what I experienced, I didn't actually get to experience any of the new interesting features of this game. It was like, like there's all this stuff.
You played it 4 times.
Yeah, there's like a skill tree. There's like a smaller PoE style like skill tree with like passives and all this sort of stuff. That's locked in the demo.
Okay.
Couldn't experience that. There's this whole diplomacy thing where you're actually writing letters, like paragraph by paragraph. You're crafting letters to fellow lords in neighboring neighboring like regions. That's not in the demo. Okay. It's all the most basic like village management stuff. So it's a game that I pretty much
like, hey, you know this kind of game you've played a lot. It's that.
It's pretty
and
much
only that.
It was
and
pretty
you
much
can't
that.
save.
It was pretty much that, and it was like, it was much slower than any of the other games. So all these games have like speed up, double speed, whatever. This one goes from like, normal speed. The next one is like 4 times speed, and then the next one is like 8 times or something. And so if you don't play it on at least 4 times speed, you don't get very far. And the first time I played, I was just playing it on normal speed, and that's why it took me like 3 hours just to like get some basic things up and running. But I do feel like it's a game I played before.
Yeah, 4 times.
Yeah. But then all the cool, but then it's such a bummer because like all the cool stuff I was like looking forward to wasn't in the demo. But the basics are down really well, and it looks really nice.
When does it come out?
I don't know. It'll be coming out in early access first.
Oh boy.
Yeah. So it from what I played, it's great. Great foundation. Great foundation, and I'm excited for all the other interesting things that should be coming from it.
Okay, cool.
Did you know that the things that you were excited about weren't in the demo?
Nope.
Okay.
I was
What
like,
about the
So you went into
time
the
you played it?
demo fully expecting the full.
yeah. Well, I mean, I knew it was like gonna not have some of the features because I mean, it's a demo of a game that's not even in early access yet.
Yeah.
And it'll be coming out in early access first. So I was expecting some features to not be there, but for it to like all the like the cool stuff of like diplomacy seemed really interesting to me, where you're like crafting a letter to people, and that none of that's in, and it really was just like the basic foundation of the game.
So
and they nailed that pretty well. Like it's pretty much the same as like Farthest Frontier in that sense.
Yep.
So okay, I get why you'd play it one time. You got this demo, you download it, you're like, it's fantastic, I can't wait to play it. There's like all these cool features.
Yeah.
Play through it. It's missing much stuff, and your village dies. Great. Totally get it.
Yep.
Second time, I get why you played it a second time.
Yep.
It's like my village died the first time. I get that there's missing all these features,
Yep.
but I want to just be successful.
Yeah.
Explain to me the third and fourth time.
I wanted to just try, like, every time I felt like I had like understood what to do better.
Yep.
And every time I started, I was like, I'm going to get further this time.
Okay.
So they have these quests, I guess that you'd call them. They're more like to me, it seems more like a tutorial of like telling you what buildings you're going to need. And you start off, it just says, build these 3 buildings.
Yeah.
And then you progress to the next sort of thing that then tells you to like build more buildings, that sort of thing. So the thing I realized is that the first couple games, I was just doing that, and I was just like, okay, how far through this do I get? I was just building the things they told me to build.
Yep.
Moving on to the next thing. The problem with that is that you require more things than just what they're saying to build.
Interesting that they're setting you up to fail.
It's like
it's like, hey, build these specific things. Okay, I've done it. Okay, you're losing.
yeah. It was like that. It was like I'd built all these specific things, and I was like, great, I'm moving on to like the next set of things to build. And then I was like, I'm running out of food.
Yeah.
Why am I running out of food? And I was like, well, the berries that my guys are picking are seasonal, so they disappear in the winter. I didn't have any hunting, like deer or anything to hunt in the region that I'm in. And I was like, I could build farms, but farms were not in that list of buildings that I should build.
Right.
So I was like, oh, I think I'm not actually supposed to only build what's in that list. I'm supposed to like build, eventually build those things, but maintain the thing. And I feel like that threw me off. Like if that didn't have that, I think I could have just like figured out what to do along the way.
This is an interesting design problem because yes, often when you're giving a player instructions, they will adhere to those instructions, and that's it.
Yeah.
And it's a difficult task to give the player enough information for them to learn that there's more that they have to do. Yeah, it's kind of it's a mental lock-in that players tend to develop.
Yep, it definitely was, because I just outsourced all my thinking to this list.
Yeah.
I wasn't worrying about anything because I was like, I trust the list, in the list.
Yeah.
And then I shouldn't have trusted the list. I should have ignored the list and just figured it out myself. Because that's with Farthest Frontier. That is what I did. There's no list.
Yeah.
I think it does suggest at the start, like, oh, you might want to build this, and your people might need this.
Yeah.
And it'll say like, it says like, your villagers need houses, and it's like, really? Of course.
Yeah.
So you're gonna build those anyway. But it took, like with Farthest Frontier, it took like 2 or 3 like new games to really get a handle on the build order that I need things in.
Sure.
And in this demo, it basically presents you a build order.
Yeah.
And then
But
you follow it, and then realize you shouldn't have been following it. So
it's more like a
completely
tech order rather than a build order.
Yeah. It's like in this phase, you'll want to build these things, not only build these things.
Right.
And it was easy to fall into that because the first bunch of buildings that is on that list are pretty much the main and only buildings you can build at that time.
Yeah.
So it leads you into thinking, oh, I get it. So it's like I'll build these and then I move on to the next ones and move on to the next ones. But really, it's like you build those and then you
go on to the next
figure it
ones,
out.
but then you go back to the first ones and build more of those.
Yeah,
and go on to
yeah.
the third, and it's like
Yeah.
often it's a pyramid sort of structure to at least to the resource generation, right?
Yeah, yeah. So
Interesting.
that's why I kept restarting so much, because I realized, like, okay, forget about this list thing. Just figure it out myself. So then eventually I was like building farms and that sort of thing. The first time I failed from not having enough food, and I thought, okay, I'll make sure to build farms this time.
Yep.
I built a farm and then was like, why are my peasants not using the farm? And then because it's not in it, like it's not in the list. It doesn't tell me. Like, it doesn't tell me anything about how the farm works.
Okay.
I just have to figure it out.
You
know. And then I realized I have to build a farmhouse. The field which I'd built is separate from the farmhouse, and so the farmhouse is what I need to assign my villagers to work the field.
Interesting.
And
you have to build two separate structures. That is weird.
Other games like that I'd played, you build the farmhouse, and within the farmhouse gives you an option to build the fields.
Okay. Interesting. Why are they even separate?
I don't know.
Does it mean you can do multiple farms per farmhouse, or?
Yeah, I mean, you can just have as many. I think the farmhouse.
Surely the
farmhouse would give you a radius, I think, and it's just like any fields within this radius, they'll work.
Yeah.
You know, and then each field you can plant different things. So it works like that. But say like me realizing, okay, I need food, I need to plant stuff, build a field. Why is nobody working the field? Everyone's going to starve to death again. And then, of course, everyone starved to death because I had a field and no farmhouse for people to work out of. So I started again.
It's weird that that's not conveyed to you clearer.
Well,
Some games don't, though, right? Some games just allow you to build things. And even in that, what's that game I was playing that was part roguelike, part weird little city builder?
The Cult of the Lamb?
Cult of the Lamb, yeah. That had a few things like that where you just build stuff and it doesn't really explain how many things it can service or anything.
Yeah.
It's like scarecrows and like to fully flesh out a farm, you need scarecrows and you need planter boxes and you needed fertilizer boxes.
Oh my God, yeah.
So for that, it makes sense to me because a big part of the roguelike experience is discovery through experimentation.
Yeah.
Whereas for a village sim, it's less about that and more about management of your resources in space. It's interesting. Everything you just kind of talked about is relevant to me at the moment.
Yeah.
So I was just at PAX Australia, and I was showing off the game I work on, which is Age of Darkness Final Stand. And the company I work for was also showing off a game called World Boss. So we had two games on the show floor, and they were really pushing World Boss because it's a first-person shooter that's built for drop-in, drop-out play. It's like kind of got the what they call like the IO gameplay framework, where it's like the game is always kind of running, and you can just sort of enter a server, and the idea is like you kind of climb the ranks, and you get perks and all sorts of stuff, and then you can leave whenever you want. There's no start or end to the game. Is the idea. Which is if you're on a show floor.
Oh yeah,
amazing. You literally walk up to a computer anytime and you play.
Yeah, that is pretty.
You have a good time and you bail. And that's the intended experience. Age of Darkness, on the other hand,
that's a tough game to be on a show floor.
Really, really hard.
Yeah.
So, we had built some save files that were intended to kind of show off different points of the gameplay.
Oh yeah.
But there's really no good point in that gameplay for a show floor. Let me take you through the variants we tried.
Yep.
Okay, so at its most basic level, when you start the game, you have a keep, you have some units, and you have to build like a hut and a lumber yard, and you have to explore, and you have to find stone, and you have to do all these things before you can even start building units. So there's like a bunch of steps before you can get to what I would describe as like the familiar RTS gameplay. And the way like our resource generation works is not like your standard RTS. There's no like villagers aren't a unit that you can control. And there's like a day-night cycle with a death-night thing mechanic that if it's all in the UI, and if you don't know what you're looking at, you don't understand it. So that's the very start of the game. Pretty confusing.
Yeah.
Also, just not a lot for you to do in those first few minutes, other than sort of explore and look for trees.
Yeah.
Trees and rocks.
Yeah. Look for a good spot to put a lumber mill.
Yeah.
Like,
and like if you know what you're doing, you can get through all of that really quick. But if you don't know what you're doing, and no one's there to tell you what you're doing, it's a really, really hard thing to start off with. So we tried also a version where you're like maybe a day before the death night, the first death night. And so you've got like most of your base established. You've got a training hall. Maybe you've got a wood workshop. You've got enough infrastructure that your base is kind of self-sustaining, and you can start building troops. So if you enter at that state, you have a lot of things to look at.
That's very confusing for someone.
So then we also tried a mid-game one where it's even bigger.
Oh my god. Yeah.
You've got pretty much all of your infrastructure you need, and you're like at Death Knight 3.
Yeah. And
it's just really about building your defenses. But if you don't know what you're trying to do, you just have lots of pieces on the board, and you don't really know what to do with them. And we also tried like the final stand, which is
my god.
This one I realized was going to be way, way, way too confusing. But I wanted like a big part of Age of Darkness's thing is like spectacle. You get to this point where like there were 70,000 units on screen or whatever. Right?
Yeah.
And that is like super exciting. It's like, to me, it's like one of the main selling points of the game. But there's just not really a good point for a player who's got 20 minutes or whatever in the middle of a busy
There's stuff going
convention.
on all around. There's noise and lights and
devs going, hey, how's it going?
Yep.
let me tell you about Age of Darkness.
Yep.
It's just not a good time. So
would it work if you just gave them infinite resources? So that it was more about figuring out where to place things and then seeing what happens during the night.
So would it work? It would.
Would it give?
The game
Would
would
it
work?
Would it give you an idea of what the experience would be?
My worry is it would give you the wrong idea. What I think is, to me, it's pretty important that the game you play, if a developer is presenting a game at some sort of promotional event, that game needs to reflect the reality of the game.
True, yeah.
Because they are trying to sell you a product, and then if you go and buy that product and it behaves very differently, you'd be upset.
Yep.
Now, this was like so obviously this is a big barrier for enjoyment of this game, especially if you don't know the RTS genre. A lot of people would just just move units around and that would be it. Some people would just sort of build one or two buildings, and then they would get stuck with their population because you have to have a farm to build a house, but you also have to have houses to build farms. There's a sort of a circular relationship there, which if you're not aware of and you're not sure how to handle it, you can get stuck. But then there were people who were like, oh, it's like Warcraft 3 or it's like Age of Empires. Like they had played something in the genre, and so they understood the basics, and it was more at that point it was like, okay, great, here's the stuff here's the core infrastructure you need to build, and also you've got a timer, and in 3 days you're going to get swarmed by monsters, so what are you going to do? Like, and they go, okay, I get it now. Like, now I have a goal. My goal is to survive. But it was interesting trying to, as I'm like stepping through the game with these, dozens and dozens and dozens of people over the course of the day, trying to find the best way to get the core knowledge over without overwhelming them. It was just interesting to hear Blake tell us the story about like, okay, they're telling me what to build, and it's leading me in the wrong direction. Because I had the same issues sometimes where like I'd tell them what to build, or I wouldn't give them enough information. Or, it's just what is the pertinent information so that they can go off on their own and have a good time. And it's a really tricky challenge. But it's a really fine line.
Your experience, you have the time limit, so
yes,
you want to get them up to speed as fast as possible without overwhelming them. you know,
Yes.
for this demo, there
Yes.
was no time limit. I could have just figured it out at my own
Sure.
pace, you know.
So there are things like if it's a demo, it's a pre-alpha
Yeah,
or whatever.
yeah.
It's like, so I would fully expect it to be flawed.
Mm.
And I think hopefully they've got some sort of outlet for feedback,
Yeah.
so that they can understand where players like yourself, who are even very familiar with the genre, are getting stuck.
Mm. I'll just end in this podcast. It's fine.
We'll get an eye emoji.
Yeah. Thanks, Elaloth.
Yeah,
devs.
that was pretty cool. For those who don't know, we got a comment from the Alawoth devs on our last podcast.
Yeah.
It was just eyes,
Just the eyes. They're watching us.
sultry,
Keeping an eye on us.
But things that I would, were I in that developer's shoes, are things like I would have contextual tutorials where it would be like, you're running low on food.
Mm.
Here's how you could get food. You know, in spring, berries are a good source. In summer, you can hunt, and otherwise, you should look to farms.
Yeah, like,
Or I see you've placed a field, but you don't have a farmhouse. Or I see you've placed a farmhouse, but you don't have a field. That kind of, where it's contextual and takes you through the steps of the pieces as they are relevant.
Mm. And to be fair, the farmhouse in its explanation does say what it does, but
But you didn't read it.
I also didn't find even though there were only so many buildings to build,
Yeah.
I'm in this mindset of like, I don't want to build stuff too early. So
Yeah.
there's stuff I'm not looking at.
Yeah.
And I found the farmhouse too late
Right.
to actually make use of it in that year before winter came.
Gotcha.
Yeah. But the farmhouse did actually say what it did and how it worked with the fields.
Yeah.
I just didn't see it in time.
Yeah. Gotcha. Yeah, it is a tricky problem.
Yeah.
It's the teaching players. It's you know, to be fair, video games have a much easier time of this than board games.
Mm. Oh, yeah. Hell yeah.
Any sort of moderately complex board game, if you try and read the instructions to understand the flow of the game, it is virtually impossible.
Yeah.
You have to really step through the first turn with like a group of people who are also reading the instructions, and they're all correcting each other and all kind of guessing.
Mm.
And that process usually takes like 45 minutes.
Yeah, that first turn is very slow and very unfun. But if you're playing with someone who's played the game before, and they can just tell you, okay, so here's what a first turn looks like.
Yeah.
It's really fast and really fun.
That's you guys have played Kingdom Death, right?
I've never played Kingdom Death.
Neither.
I've played Gloomhaven though.
Oh, okay. Maybe
Is Gloomhaven the Dungeons and Dragons? No, yeah,
It's-
D&D one?
Sort
Similar,
of,
right?
but it's like D&D light from what I've heard.
okay.
I've never actually done proper D&D.
Okay.
Gloomhaven looks really cool. I really want to try it, but man, it's a big intimidating game.
Yeah, they did put out there's Jaws of the Lion, which is the less intimidating version.
Okay.
That's meant to be easier to set up,
Yeah.
easier to get into, less
Uh-huh.
options for things.
Yeah.
And it's also the prequel to the main game.
Okay.
So if you end up
Yeah.
buying the main game,
oh.
I think you can still use the pieces and stuff.
Oh wow. Oh, that's very clever.
Cool.
Yeah.
They're also putting out Frosthaven.
Oh really?
Yeah,
Wow.
I've pre-ordered Frosthaven.
Nice.
That's great. But yeah, what I was gonna say with Kingdom Death, that's a game that like sometimes the setup is takes longer than the actual game.
Well, that's a game that it brutally murders you. So
Yeah.
That doesn't surprise
Yeah,
me.
but it's also a game where it's like you need someone who's played it before to actually like walk you through it.
Yeah.
Like
yeah,
every time I've played, there's been someone who has played before.
Yes.
If we didn't have that, it'd be tough.
I mean, even a relatively simple game. We bought Azul last Christmas.
Oh yeah.
Have you played Azul?
No, but it's a very popular game, right? Like I
quite popular, yeah.
always see it in like board game sites.
Yeah, it's beautiful and it's really fun.
Mm.
But if you're reading the instructions, it's really confusing.
Oh my god.
Anyway.
Yeah, it's tough.
Yep. Teaching is tough.
I mean, it's It's tough because it's the same as like a video game demo. Like a well-crafted demo is like, I think, almost an art in itself.
Yeah. Yep. Paul, you
Yo.
been playing anything?
Yes, I've been playing Despot's game, which have you seen anything about it?
No.
It properly released like last week, I think. It's
Okay. Is it called Despot's Game? That's
Yep.
the name of the game?
yeah,
Okay.
and it's an auto battler roguelike kind of thing
Ooh.
where
What platform?
so it's on Steam and it's also on Android.
Ooh, I'm gonna Google it right now.
He's gonna.
It is
download
legitimately fun.
He's not.
The only downside to the Android version is that they're trying to convey a lot of information in a very small screen.
Okay.
Some of the icons are slightly too small. Some of the things that you need to press on are slightly too small. And with my Gumby fingers, I keep misclicking things.
I've
if
now
you've-
queued to download.
Oh,
Thank you.
Easy. But I ended up buying it on Steam and Android.
Cool.
Does it have crossplay? Like, is it?
No,
Is it-
you can't continue the same runs or anything.
Which is your
but
preferred version?
probably PC,
Oh yeah,
but
because of the UI.
I feel like because it's just easier to click things.
Yep.
And uncover the best of times.
Yeah.
But it is nice having it in my pocket too. Like I will play it before work or something, just in the car or
Cool.
whatever. Just
Slay the
don't-
Spire on Android has some UI issues that make it really hard to click on certain things as well. So,
Yeah.
I wonder if this is just bad ports, basically.
Maybe they did launch on Android at the same time, though, as far as I can tell.
Interesting.
But I'm still guessing it was developed for PC
Yeah.
first.
Yeah.
Once you played it on PC, though, it is like fine to play on mobile.
Gotcha.
Just a lot of the things are tiny icons, and you got to sort of hover over them, which
Right.
means jamming your finger in the screen. And
Did you play Slay the Spire on your phone?
yes, yeah, I did. I misclicked there a bunch as well.
Yeah, the potions are the most problematic thing.
Yeah.
These 3 tiny icons,
Hmm.
and if you don't know what a potion does, it is really hard to find out.
Yep. This has those same sort of issues.
Yeah. Okay.
There's even a like heal thing that you can get at the end of the level, and you've got to tap in this tiny icon in the bottom corner to select the heal.
Yeah.
And then you've got to tap on one of your units, and your units are like these tiny little dudes.
Ugh.
Uh,
Okay. Well, I've queued a download.
it's still worth buying
Yeah.
for sure. Like this is just some annoying UI stuff.
It looked like it was free on Android. Maybe it's like
Yeah, it's free.
maybe you get like some of it for free and
Yeah.
you buy the rest.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
But it's really fun, and it does some really interesting things. Like there's the main game mode. You progress through 12-ish levels, going through rooms, trying to be, and each level will have a new kind of enemy that you've got to sort of work your way around, figure out how to build a team that will get through it.
Nice.
There's a lot of like trying to be very careful with how you spend resources, because like you could build by a massive like army of dudes.
Yeah.
But each dude eats 1 food per room you go through,
Oh.
and it's to buy food you're using the same currency that you would buy guys with, that you would use in the little passive tree thing to upgrade things. So it's a real delicate
Interesting.
balance of
It really is. Where do you spend your resources?
Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting.
but it's real fun. And once you get through the main part of the game, it will then pit you against other teams. So you beat the game,
like other players.
yeah, and then it
That's
does a
cool.
King of the Hill
Oh,
thing
wow.
at the end, where
That's cool.
And if you've previously beaten the game, at some point you're likely to face yourself and find
I
out
like
like
that.
which of your teams was the better you.
Oh wow.
I've had ideas for games that had a very similar end state, where basically you would start facing pre-saved like asynchronous multiplayer. Essentially.
Yep, and that's how this works.
Nice.
There's also an entire other game mode called Brawl, where you go through 3 rooms and then you fight a player instead of fighting the whatever would usually be a boss.
Okay.
and then you go through 3 rooms and you fight a player. So they've got 2 different kinds of weird PvP going
That's
on there.
cool. Yeah.
I didn't like that as much.
Why?
Because you've got less room to fix things once they start going wrong.
Okay. And I guess you also don't have the capacity to know what you're about to face.
Not at all.
Yeah.
Other than that, they will have had the same amount of resources to spend as you.
Sure.
But they could have been super lucky on like the upgrades that were available. There's lots of like mutations, they're called.
Gotcha.
Which, some of them are in the passive tree thing. It's not really a passive tree, it's just a little... It's got like 5 tracks of things you can go through and upgrade.
Gotcha.
But there's all these other ones that you can find through upgrade rooms that will just offer you like a random set of mutations. You get to pick one. And some of those are super powerful.
Is there like okay, so what behaviors do these troops have? When you said it's like an auto battler, are we talking kind of similar to say the what was it called, Pets auto battler? Trying to remember the name of the one. Super
that
auto
had
Pets.
more like specific mechanics going on. This is more you're building an army. You'll have sword dudes that run up and do melee.
Yep.
You'll have tanks.
Okay.
It also has synergy. So if you get like 3 tanks, they'll unlock an ability that I think for tanks is a taunt.
Yep.
But they can't be the same unit. They have to be 3 different tanks. And
okay.
there'll be
so
5 tiers for each thing. The most expensive one has like scales the best.
And is there like a merging component? Like
No merging.
Okay.
Not
Interesting.
that I know of anyway. I hope there's no merging because I've been playing without it.
Because the thing that strikes me, I mean, a lot of these are kind of familiar mechanics if you played an auto battler before, where you kind of go, you're building a squad, and the squads have properties. Each individual member has properties.
Yep.
And at certain thresholds, you'll unlock like new mechanics for that squad, or for those properties, rather.
There's also some interesting synergies between the different classes. Like, you can get a thing for the fencers, which are one of the sword dudes.
Yeah.
That will remove magic resistance on an enemy once they've been attacked. So then if you can go like mages plus... There's also fighters, which are another melee unit. Get a synergy with the tanks that causes the tanks to take all the damage that the fighters would take.
Nice. Okay, so they can
survive
a lot longer.
Yep.
They're basically, I assume, a DPS class.
Yep.
Nice. Have you played Riot Games' Auto Battler?
I have not.
Okay.
I've heard good things about it, but
Yeah, there's. I mean, look, it's strictly PvP.
Yep.
And well, they do an interesting thing in that they basically change the format every 3 or so months. Like they have seasons, and they will rotate basically which heroes are available in the fairly large pool of heroes.
Yeah.
So you might get, 50% or more of the heroes swapped out every season.
That's kind of cool.
And they'll also change what all the properties are, and add other weird mechanics in. So like, there's one where you would get to choose special items between certain rounds that you could augment your team with.
Yeah.
And that wasn't like a thing in the previous season. That's quite interesting then, that they basically will play with the structural format of the game, but they don't actually touch the way the game progresses.
Yeah.
It's always basically you're fighting other players, and it's just last man standing essentially. I've never
So is that
heard of
against multiple opponents at the same time, or is that
It is
1v1?
against, it's 1-on-1, but it's sort of a round robin.
okay?
So it's like there's 8 people in the pool, and then like they pair them up, and the four rounds will play out, and the winners or the losers will lose some health, and slowly they get eliminated. So the pool gets smaller and smaller until oftentimes if you're like one of the last 2 people standing, you'll just end up fighting the same person back to back a few times.
Yeah.
which can be very frustrating or like really fun. Like
Yep.
if you can't figure out how to like change your squad or positioning or whatever to get the better of them, and you keep losing back to back, and you maybe you
It's
start off
kind
with
of
more
cool
health.
where you get a few chances though.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it really depends on how well you did in the earlier rounds, but
Yep.
yeah, you can. It's honestly it's quite a lot of fun, but it didn't keep me stuck around, and I don't fully understand why. I think part of it is that they have a fairly weak meta progression system. You get some points for doing some things, and you have a sort of battle pass system.
Yep.
So you can unlock like, cosmetics essentially.
This doesn't have any overall progress like that.
But what it does have, by the sounds of things, is at least a randomized single player campaign that I can play sort of at my own pace.
Yep.
Which sounds great.
Mm.
Because I've played lots of Slay the Spire. I've played lots of dicey dungeons. Neither of these have particularly strong meta progression systems. So
Yeah, and roguelikes are kind of they're their own thing because you have enough randomness, right?
Exactly.
To just go back and
yes.
have a different experience to the one you had last time.
Yeah. The failings for the auto battlers, the multiplayer auto battlers, is if you get a bad start, it can be almost impossible to recover.
Yep.
Whereas with a roguelike setup, at least for a game like say Slay the Spire, a bad start isn't necessarily as bad as you think because you don't really know what's around the next.
Yep.
Cool. Like what you're gonna get after the next battle.
Mm-hmm.
You could get some insane card or a relic or whatever that just changes it completely. So it's a very different sense of progress as you're playing through it, I guess.
Yep. And I have had games like that where it starts out and it seems like it's going to go terrible, and then you just happen to land on the right upgrade and then
Nice.
the right unit to turn it around.
Blake, do you want to get it?
Maybe.
Sorry, is it not early enough access?
Have I just talked about it 2 weeks ago, but I hadn't looked it up yet.
You should have mentioned that there was like some sort of village, or
Is there a demo of it?
There might be.
With like all the interesting
'Cause
features?
I'm
not
pretty
available?
sure it was in early access before, so you might be able to find an old build that's slightly more
perfect.
broken.
Perfect.
If what you're really looking for is the unfinished version.
Yeah.
you played a little bit of Slay the Spire, didn't you, Blake?
Yeah,
What'd you think?
it was good. We talked about it.
Yeah,
I really
So,
liked it.
I guess my question is, why do you like such bad games? I'm just teasing. Blake, you've been playing something else, right?
I have been playing something else.
Uh,
Which also means why you're
so-
like... Yeah, I got back into Cyberpunk.
So, I repeat the question.
Yep.
Why do you like such bad games?
So Cyberpunk has had a bit of a resurgence
Yeah.
recently because of a Netflix show. And that was why I also got into it. Like, I've not even like...
Did you watch the show?
I've watched like 3 episodes of it, and I was like, you know what? I'm going to give this a go. It's been 2 years, and 2 years of updates have made that game pretty playable now.
Is it good?
Yeah.
I think
Boy, you are really dancing around it, aren't you?
I think it is good. However, However-
this is more couched than me right now, and I'm sitting on a couch.
however, I think my expectations have been adjusted based on my previous experience. Because I am playing it in a completely different play style as I did last time. Last time I played very sneaking around,
Yep.
backstabbing people, choking people out, doing that sort of thing. And
Yep.
I was like wanting to never be seen. Like if I went through an encounter without anybody ever seeing me, I felt like that was the win.
Yep.
But the game supports that, but not very well.
Okay.
Like that is the most frustrating way to probably play that game. And this time I am playing as just first-person shooter guy,
Yeah.
and
Okay.
I'm having a great time.
Right. Okay. Are you noticing significant differences since the last time you played?
No bugs so far. No bugs.
Okay.
We like that. That's probably like the biggest thing because we We talked about this. There was like T-posing people all over the place.
Oh, yeah.
Cars were like changing when you looked away from them and looked back. People had no faces. Floating cigarettes was like a major thing. Like I was constantly every cutscene that's supposed to be like emotional, like someone's dying or whatever. There's just like a cigarette floating in front of their face because they had been holding one like a minute ago and they moved their hand and for some reason the model got stuck there. And that was happening all the time and I had to like really work to enjoy that game.
Yeah, I remember some of those cutscenes just being not even half done.
Yeah.
It was bizarre.
It was like the bugs were really distracting.
It was honestly when that game came out, that was a really fun 2 months of scrolling Reddit.
It was nuts.
Like, it was just so much.
It was nuts.
It's such a great wide variety of hilarious and kind of jaw-dropping bugs. Like Bethesda's notorious for releasing buggy games, and like when an Elder Scrolls game drops, you can be sure to see some characters flying into the sky or whatever. Cyberpunk seemed to have set a new level to that, and
Yep.
Well, I'm glad to say they fixed all the bugs that I had seen previously, and so now I can actually just focus on the core gameplay, and it's pretty fun. However, I do understand that like a lot of that is based on past knowledge of like where the flaws in this game actually are, the type of gameplay that is actually more fun and like preferable than
so you've gone out of your way to play the fun way, and I'm having
a great time.
Great time. A great time.
Actually, yeah, I am having a great time. I'm probably gonna play it after the podcast. Like I can just straight up enjoy like just playing it as a shooter, and like some minor sneaking, but not being like that's my whole life is sneaking. It's just
my whole life.
It's just a whole better experience, and it's just completely ignoring all the just understanding that there are limitations to it, and avoiding it.
That seems weird to me. I guess like okay, what let's address one of those. What are the limitations?
I would say it's still just the sneaking for me.
Okay.
The sneaking is like the big thing. Like it presents it as, you have a whole skill tree that and stuff. You can spec all the way into sneaking and you can be all stealthy and stuff. But like the actual stealth mechanics of like being spotted and then once you're spotted, like it's just not enjoyable to me. It's not a Dishonored. It's not a like Thief. It's not I don't know what other sneaking. Even more like moral, like Skyrim probably has more enjoyable sneaking than that game. Like I would say like Dishonored is probably my bar of sneaking games.
Sneak simulator.
Sneak simulator. But then that is what that game is. So I think maybe
only if you go that route.
Can you go any other route?
I'm pretty sure you can just be a shooty guy.
Can you?
Yeah,
in Dishonored?
I'm pretty sure.
Really, I'm pretty sure that game was all about sneaking. Unless I just played it like that. But then that even makes my point even more clear. If you can play it like a shooting person and a sneaking person. And I thought the sneaking was done so well in that game that that's just what I thought the game was. And so I was expecting that when I first played Cyberpunk, and just having a horrible time like sneaking around. It's not fun, but running around shooting people is so much more fun. And also, I've gotten into the melee weapons. So I'm running around with a katana.
Okay.
Oh my god, it's so cool! You just sprint around, slicing people up.
Okay, cool.
Like I've figured out what the ideal way to play that game.
Okay.
And now that I know that. Oh my god, it's
you're having a great time.
I'm having a great time.
That's good.
Yeah.
You know what?
It got more convincing the more you talked about it.
I'm like looking forward to doing missions. Before I was like, another because I have to go through the motions of like sneaking around and like hacking into cameras and doing all this stuff
yeah.
and like planning out who I'm going to take out first, and the whole thing was just frustrating.
Yeah.
And then now I'm just like, you know what? I'm just going to run in with a katana and slice everyone up.
Yeah. When I first played it, back when it came out, I did all of it just with like the pistols,
Oh yeah.
like the one-shot pistols that were just one.
Oh wow, yeah.
One-shot headshot.
Yeah.
One-shot headshot.
One-shot headshot.
One-shot headshot.
One-shot headshot?
One-shot headshot.
Gotcha.
Um,
Sorry, but how many
and
shots?
that was heaps of fun. Even
Yeah.
with the broken game back then.
Yeah.
You just run out and just start blasting
Yeah.
people in the face, and there was no planning or anything. It was just an
Yeah.
action.
You just run in there
Shoot
and,
again.
and shoot everyone, and then
One-shot
like job done.
headshots.
Yeah.
I have not really been following that game closely.
Well, I mean, neither have I. Like, I just decided, you know what, I'm going to give it another go.
Are there like have they added new stuff?
There's a
I know
whole,
they fixed a bunch of
yeah.
stuff.
There's loads of new stuff, but it's like nothing that really impacts gameplay too much. They've added like apartments that you can buy. There's like some sort of photo mode with like a hairless cat.
Okay.
And then there's I think there's new like I have this thing on the side. There's this like add-on there's this add-on panel that just shows you all the new stuff that they've added, and it's all
Okay.
like cosmetics. Oh, it's like items and
Right.
and cars and that sort of stuff. Like
Yeah.
nothing substantial. I would like gameplay wise.
Okay.
But they do have their first. I think their first DLC, or at least their first major DLC coming.
Paid
like,
or
next
free?
month. Ooh, good question. I don't know.
Mm.
Paid would be pretty bold.
Yeah. I'm curious.
Pretty bold move
Very
of them.
curious. Yeah. That's a gamble.
Yeah.
I've heard that they this is CD Projekt Red. They've got at least one more Witcher game in the works and like 4 other titles or something.
Yeah, it's
Some
nuts.
ridiculous number of
It's nuts. I saw that that like tweet list on Twitter of, well, someone sent me a screenshot or something of all these announcements that were on Twitter, and
Yeah.
it just kept going. Like I was just scrolling, and it's like,
for CD Projekt Red.
yeah,
Yeah, I haven't looked at. I just know that there's a bunch of projects that are now being worked on,
yeah,
which is interesting.
mm.
Like, it's a risk. They previously had been sort of a one game studio,
Mm.
and then they had Cyberpunk working in the background while they were doing all the Witchers,
Yeah,
and that did not work out so hot for them.
no,
And now they're really doubling down on that strategy. So hopefully
Mm.
they've learned a lot about how to do that, or we'll just see a repeat. And
I mean,
I think
don't know.
I think you more than anybody would be very sad if The Witcher came out in the state.
Yes,
that
definitely,
Cyberpunk came out.
definitely. We can have Sav on, and he can just like, he can just
Oh, he would love
gleefully
it.
gloat
Oh, I love it so much.
and love it.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
But yeah, it's the main thing is all these bugs gone, so I can actually like just enjoy the game and the story.
Yeah.
Which the main story is quite cool.
Okay.
It's quite good. It's when you go off onto side quests that you start seeing like the not bugs, but like the NPC-ness of the world.
Uh-huh.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. And that in itself it can be distracting, even in like the more crafted like story, like main story sections.
Yeah.
There have been times where it's like you're talking to a character, like it's a bit of a cutscene and dialogue options and stuff, and then you're talking about, you know, stuff that's just happened, like big turns in the story and whatever.
Yep.
And in the background, there's just like an NPC doing its NPC thing of like walking back and forth endlessly, like dead eyes, you know.
What I find interesting and a little bit frustrating is when heavily story-driven games with like lots of layers to the narrative, as in like, you know, there's lots of different steps and every character has things to say about every step, kind of thing. So when those start to collide in a noticeably bad way,
Oh yeah,
the example I best point to is Hades,
right.
where you can out progress the NPC dialogue.
Oh yeah, you've
You
said
know?
you've said this before.
Where
Yeah.
you'll do a thing and then it'll be talking about a threshold you met 5 runs ago or
Yeah,
whatever
yeah.
because it hasn't caught up or it had to skip ahead or whatever.
Mm.
I always find those it's an interesting thing. Like I think often the reason and I fall into the same trap. When you're writing for a game and you're getting all this stuff voice acted, you really, really, really want the player to hear and see and read it and get all this content. And I'm sure on some level the player probably also wants that. But I think in the effort to put this in front of their eyes,
Yeah.
in the most sensible way, and still also have them see all of the stuff, you end up with really weird situations that can actually undermine your intent.
Yeah.
And that maybe it's better to be like, okay, they don't get this dialogue.
Yeah.
And it's a tricky one.
There's Elden Ring did that quite a lot, right? Like you would catch up with characters that you were supposed to have gone and do a thing with,
Yeah.
and instead of that entire storyline where you interacted with the dude, he'd just be like, "Oh, I didn't catch you in that place."
And you
Just miss out on that entire part of the story.
Yeah. See, I think that it is ultimately probably healthier for the player.
I think so.
But it's a if you're on the creator side, it's a real hard thing to let go of all that work.
Yeah.
And put it in that.
Yeah, I bet.
Put that trust in the player's hands to still enjoy it.
But
you know?
that work, even though like players will see that work, it's just some players won't. But having it so that work was done off camera, basically by this NPC who says about it, who's like, "Oh, I didn't catch you here. I just did this myself." That makes the world seem more alive.
It does.
You know, then if you
That's
ran
exactly
into
my
them and
point.
you're like, okay, now I've just unlocked their quest, which is like 10 levels back.
Yeah.
You know,
It's much more immersive, and the counter to that is like when the opposite happens and they're still talking about old events.
yeah,
It pulls you out.
yeah.
But Blake, you've been an artist on Path of Exile for I think 4,000 years.
Yeah, when GGG started, I was already there.
Yeah, you were.
I was in Chris's garage just waiting.
You were encased in stone on a chair.
Yeah.
and they had to break you out.
I started on cave paintings. That was I was
yeah. Tile-based cave.
yeah.
Procedural generated
Yeah.
glyphs. And you've talked in the past about how like when I think it was 2.0 came out and people were running the aqueducts and you were watching streams and you were really excited because you're like you worked really hard on the aqueducts. You spent ages on these waterfalls and someone went to the end of this little dead end and there was this waterfall and the player went, "Oh, nothing here," and turned around.
Yep. They didn't even so. It was literally like a week or two earlier that I was working on this waterfall. Me and the effects artist were working on it. We crafted it. I was like really stoked with it.
Yeah.
Like you could see all the like internal structure of the aqueducts, and you could see that this water was like pouring out. And I was like, I cannot wait until players see this. And like you just said, I was watching a stream. They didn't even get to the end of the walkway because they could see on the mini map that it was a dead end. So they just turned around before they even got to see the actual dead end.
Yeah. So you understand the like sense of attachment to a piece of content you've created.
Yeah.
How do you feel about if there was a moment in Path of Exile where you get towards that end of the aqueduct and the camera pans down and it says like, "Check out this sweet waterfall," and it's like the player is forced to watch for 5 seconds your work before they can continue.
But then you could do that for everything because
exactly.
It's fine. And it to me, like I've watched streams like that where the players just completely ignore all this hard work I've done. But then I've also watched streams where players will run around and zoom in on stuff and go, "Oh my god, look at this! There's like a little skeleton guy buried underneath these books," or like I remember watching, I think it was Ziggy D go through the reliquary, and I think he'd cleared it, and then he just went through, zooming in on every little like display
Nice,
and stuff,
yeah.
and I was like, "This is I'm validated."
I loved.
I
that
don't
reliquary.
care if 1,000 other players didn't do that.
You got one,
I got one, and that's all that matters.
the most important one.
Yeah.
Anyway, I just think it's such an interesting thing because we're everyone who I think anyone who creates on a project and really wants their audience to experience their work,
Yeah.
they have to weigh up these decisions, and it's interesting to see when ego
Yeah.
gets in the way.
I've got another example for you.
Yep.
The paintings in the haunted.
Oh, I love those.
Like
In the haunted house.
most players, 99% of
Yeah.
players do not know that those paintings change. But
Yeah.
the 1% that do and post about it, they're
That makes your
the
day.
whole reason
Yeah.
I did it. Because it's that thing of like it makes the whole thing seem more alive.
Yes. Yeah.
You don't need to zoom in on it and be like, look, see, it's changing. Like,
You don't need a character line that goes, "Oh, that painting.
yeah.
It looked different a moment ago."
Yeah. Wait. Stand there. Now stand here. Oh my God, look at the difference.
Meanwhile, this is popping up when you're in the next area.
Yeah, exactly.
Because you'd missed it in the previous one.
You come out and then NPC is like, "Did you see the paintings change?"
Yeah.
Yeah. We're pretty much out of time. I just thought, interesting.
Yeah.
We'll be back in a couple weeks, I think. You guys got anything else you want to say before we bail?
I don't think so.
No.
Okay, good. That was a really...
Cyberpunk's pretty great.
Huh?
Cyberpunk's pretty great.
Okay, all right.
Play that game, but
Okay, enough.
don't play a sneaking character.
We talked about the like Zelda trailer. I think we must have. I don't remember when that
Did
came out.
we?
Anyway, there was a new. If we haven't, there was a new Zelda trailer. 5 seconds of gameplay.
Yeah.
It still looks like it's gonna be amazing.
Next year too.
If you've
coming
got
out next year.
if you've got remarks about Cyberpunk or anything really, friendsneakquestions@gmail.com. You can email us. We read them all the time. Specifically, Blake reads them all the time.
I'm interested to know if anybody like me watched Edge Runners on Netflix and played Cyberpunk because of it. Because they definitely had a resurgence because of that.
Yep.
Yeah.
You also stopped watching the show to play the game.
Yes, I did. I've not gone back to watch the show.
Yeah. I wonder how that's
Expensive ad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The game will be like, now watch the rest of the show, and it stops until you
Yeah.
Netflix on. All right. Yeah, we want to hear from you. We love hearing from you. Thanks, Paul. Thanks, Blake.
Thanks, Nick.
Thanks.
Thanks, Paul.
Thanks.
You don't want to mention our names. Paul.
No.
That's fair. All right. We'll be back in a couple weeks, baby. Huh?
Seems dangerous.
Yeah.
Yeah, like Beetlejuice.
I don't think you've ever mentioned our names in any of the episodes.
You always say, "Hey, you."
Yeah. Hey, you. Hey, fella. Hey, friend.
Hey, guys.
It's always with a sneer. Anyway, we'll be back. Bye.
Okay, there's these NPCs that you can choose to talk to or not talk to. You don't get it though. You can choose.
No. There's like how there's like quest icons. Yeah, it's like those.
It's
but
like
for
those,
lore.
but for lore, and so you can see them and choose not to talk to them.
So they're NPCs.
Yeah, yeah. It's
All right.
Good game. The creators of it left a YouTube comment on our last.
Wait,
thing.
really?
Yeah, but not really a comment. More of an emoji.
Eggplant?
I wish.